This is a story from Once Upon a Page, my new collection of short stories based in Kuwait and India. An Act of Mimicry. Musti's world was shattered. He lay on the floor crying like a little baby, would not eat, refused water, even his favorite cold milk. This had been going on for 5 days, ever since his master had died. Ever since his little universe had collapsed the day they got his favorite person home, bleeding and dying by the bullets that had been riddled into him from the hands of the rebel Maoists who hated him for his courage and bravado, who resented his committed role as deputy commissioner of this backward, trouble-torn district in Jharkhand, the land of forests. The house was filled with neighbors, numerous friends and shocked relatives who came to mourn the passing away of Vijay Verma, a 42-year-old Indian government officer who had been not only an honest but also a wonderful human being. Along with Ramu, the old servant, many of the visitors tried in vain to cajole Masti, the little monkey, to eat a morsel, to prance around and perform his naughty antics like he used to, mimic the acts of all those who surrounded him. No wonder he had been named Masti. Vijay had caught him in the act of stealing the new gardener's cap, wearing it at various angles on his little head, hurling it back at him from a treetop and then mischievously chuckling exactly like him. Loving his playful spirit, he had made up the name on the spot. But now Masti refused to budge from his corner, remained glued to the very spot where his beloved master had lain before he was taken away forever from his sight. The little creature alternated between crying quietly and lying pitiably in a pensive pose. It was apparent he was waiting for Vijay to come back, waiting for a miracle that would never happen. It broke Nalini's heart to see her brother's pet in this state. She had been there when Vijay had saved him 3 years ago from drowning in the local canal and brought him home, shivering and looking as bedraggled as a capsized piece of sodden wood. Frightened and clinging to her brother, his large eyes mesmerizing in his little pixie face, Masti was the most endearing monkey she had ever seen. Vijay had instantly adopted him like the son he never had. Masti has an incredibly pure soul, Nalini, the soul of a saint, he had said. And this little angel of mischief never forgot his master's kindness and became his eternal shadow. He accompanied him in all his tours and official visits, holding his hand tightly or perched merrily on his shoulder, and local residents accepted his unusual but enchanting presence with both amusement and awe. What devotion! Rarely seen in a monkey. Nalini sat down near Masti and held his little paw in her kind hands. She realized how weak and painfully scrawny he had become with his long self-imposed fast. The vet had tried to put him on a drip, but Masti went crazy resisting him. No one knew what to do. Nalini had a train to catch the next morning to visit her father-in-law who was seriously ill. She was in a dilemma. She did not have the heart to leave Masti behind alone. It was evening now and most of the guests had left. So had other members of the family. Vijay's aging parents, his doting aunt, autistic younger brother, and numerous cousins, and the omnipresent memory of his wife who had deserted him for her lover. They all had to move on. What other choice did they have? Nalini sighed and picked up the untouched bowl of banana and peanuts. Come on, Masti, eat a little. Cheer up, my poor, poor darling. He lay there, just looking at her with eyes that would never twinkle again. He started to whimper, as if trying to say something. Nalini just couldn't bear it any longer. She started crying incessantly for her own loss of a much-loved brother, for the unspoken sorrow in Masti's tender heart, and for the mere fact that mortality would always wear her down. She only stopped crying when she realized her tears were falling all over Masti's fuzzy, crouched back. She stood up then, lovingly covered the shivering creature with a cotton stole, and went upstairs to start her packing. An hour later, she was on the balcony finishing a call to the local vet when Ramu came rushing up to her, looking completely distraught. He would not say a word, just beckoned to her to follow him. Her heart sinking with dread, Nalini went downstairs with trepidation, 100 fearful scenes playing in her head. Oh my God! She stood frozen as she saw Masti hanging limp from the still fan, her stole trailing down in vivid bandhani colors. The chair he used as a prop on the table tilted over. She couldn't bear to see the knot around his little neck, couldn't look at those lifeless, loving arms that had always been clasped around her brother's neck, couldn't muster the courage to see his beautiful eyes with the light forever gone out of them. How? Kaise? She managed to choke out the words. And then she remembered. Recalled that night on a previous visit when Vijay had been called urgently to the home of a well-known businessman. Masti had jumped into the official jeep with him, accompanying him joyfully with his trademark naughty chuckle. He had come back quite subdued, and Vijay had told her it had been a sad night. The trader's middle-aged wife had committed suicide in her bedroom, hung herself from the ceiling fan.